Shalom, everyone. Shalom. I want to welcome everyone to King James Bible University. I'm Elder Michael Johnson, and today we're going to be going through a very interesting teaching today, which as we go through this today, we're going to be going through the truth about churches and the use that they use for the 501c3 corporations and the donation schemes they like to use when they set their churches up this way. And what most people need to find out and really need to understand the truth about these churches is, why would a pastor of a church want to become a nonprofit organization of a 501c3? A tax-exempt status means that the church does not have to file federal income taxes on their tax forms. That's what this actually means. And individuals and businesses can write off donations on their taxes. Now, under Section 501c in the U.S. Internal Revenue IRS Code, Section 26 USC 501c. However, there are a few things you need to remember. And at the point, and I'm going to end up pointing these out to you, that in the United States law exists that it requires anyone, understand what I'm saying, the United States law that exactly exists, that they don't require anyone to file a federal income tax form. That's number one. That's one problem with these businesses. And the Most High Church is not legally recognized entity, no way. Let's make these things perfectly clear. They are not legally recognized as an entity, no way. So they make it already tax exempt from the beginning, just before they did anything. I bet many don't know this. However, enticing the ones to give via tax write-off is not even biblical giving. We're going to find that out. We're going to find that out as we go through here. In fact, the history shows that the early church of Yahushua started in the book of Acts, in the story of believers refused to surrender to any human authority, including civil government. Which, as even in Romans, we had Paul, who spent much of his time behind bars. And as he did free. And who was incarcerated, and who incarcerated him? The civil government. Why? Because he refused to surrender to the authority of Christ, to their authority. Because he wasn't going to surrender to them. He only surrendered to the authority of Christ, which it goes directly into Romans 13. And we're going to pick it up there, 13:1, and we're going to start right there. It says, "Let every soul be subject unto the higher power, for there is no power but of God." The power that are ordained of God. So as a believer, we are subject unto the higher power of the Most High God. And if we resist the ordinance of the Most High commandments, then, verse 2, "Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resist the ordinance of God, and that they resist shall receive to themselves damnation." So we that resist and will receive eternal damnation. So first we need to learn what the history and the truth of a 501c3 church. That's what mostly everybody want to come in. This is what they want to find out. So have we ever wondered what these pastors would do if they went to the IRS office to get permission? Why are they doing this? To get permission to become exempt from the taxes, and they don't want to owe them back again. This is what's going on. Did you know in the New Testament, churches are already tax exempt because they cannot be recognized as a legal entity? Think about this. If these so-called American founding fathers, these ones that's calling themselves the founding fathers, believed in the Most High, which is actually true, then they would be embedded in sin. Why would I say that? Because they rebelled against the British crown, against them automatically. And they had authority over them. This is part of the problem. Let's go to Daniel 11, pick it up at 23. It says, for after the league made with them, him he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. Now, these so-called preachers and teachers, he created what he called seminaries, Bible schools, and to do these things to follow to where they can achieve these fellow degrees. So what we do, as you know, as I always do, we're going to get a foundation here. And once we get this foundation, we're going to dive and we're going to see the inner workings of a 501c3. We're going to find out the inner workings of that and find out exactly how that works. But first, what we always do, we get a foundation to understand before we get into it. It's just like you're going to look at the instructions before you start putting something together. This is what we always have to do. Let's go through the instructions first, and then we're going to dive into it. But these, what they do, and why it says these small people, because what they're going to end up achieving: theological degrees, masters of divinities, doctorate of theology, Then they get these doctorate of divinity. This is to use the perceptions of God to understand, to become strong against the less intelligent people of the word. This is what they're doing. Verse 24. And he should enter peaceably. That's how they come. Even upon the fattest places of the providence, and he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey and spoils and riches. Yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. This is what they're doing. So we will enter in with peace. So they come in peace. However, he's a wolf looking upon you as prey for spoils and riches. Do you want to know why pastors will not speak even out against the evil practices of policies, pontifications, in the elect civil magistrates? You want to know why? Because of the fear of violating a 501c3 statute that thereby risk losing the precious government benefits of tax exemption. This is what they do. So they reject the authority of Christ for the fear of losing the benefits of Caesar, which is the IRS. That's all this is getting into. Why? We're going to look at John 11:48. We're getting our foundation before we're going to get these instructions taken care of. Then we're going to dive into it. And it says, if we let him thus alone, understand what this is saying real close. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. We're going to find out exactly what this is saying. So what they're saying, leave him alone due to the chance if they can lose their exempt status. So let not rock the boat. So they submit to that wittingly or unwittingly. The great host of pastors and churches today have all that they want to lose, the most significant of their foundational doctrine. So like the Pharisees of old, their man-made tradition and political connections to secular powers have to supplant the sovereignty of Christ over their lives and over their churches, over money and power. However, we got to remember that the Pharisees knew they were subjected to Rome. And in this case, they subjected to the IRS. This is what is going on. And they assisted that Rome overlord in keeping the people in subjection by teaching what? A false doctrine. This is what they do. As a result, the Pharisees had to be very profitable, which they are. And then they're in a cozy relationship with Caesar, the Roman Empire, the same as what they're in a cozy relationship right now with the IRS government. Because they're able to collect your money and they don't have to pay taxes on it. As I said, we're going to get the foundation of this. And then what they do, they enjoy the great financial benefits of incorporating in the Roman government, where it was given latitude by Rome or government in the Israelite people. They had power to what? To do disbarment. They had power for persecution, to arrest, incarceration, even death. They have virtually unlimited power over people. About the only power they didn't have without the Roman consent was power to do crucifixion. However, they had the influence over that. We're going to come back to this verse because we're going to get deeper more to this verse before we jump into everything. But we're going to look at Jeremiah. We're going to go to 9 and verse 3. And it says, and they bend their tongues like their bow for lies, but they are not valiant for the truth upon the earth. For they proceed from evil to evil, and they know me not, saith the Lord. What is it saying? Preachers of tongues, they use their bow, bending for lies. That's really deep on what they're saying, because they bending it like a bow, but what are they shooting out of their mouth? Those words are like arrows going into you. And the lies is being shot directly at you, being the people, and they don't even know the Most High. His words is to Israel, and you have even non-Israelite telling you what the Bible is saying and never knew him. But then they go to him to get those theological degrees. Verse 4. And take heed that every one of his neighbor, and trust ye not in any brother. For every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will walk with slanders. What is it saying? You don't even trust the brothers of your neighborhood who are like that. They eradicate the ones, and what they do, they supply it with a substitute or to supersede the things of other, especially by force, treachery, or fear. This is all this is saying. Verse 5. And they will deceive everyone his neighbor and will not speak the truth. They have taught their tongues to do what? To speak lies and worry themselves to commit iniquity, to commit sin. So how? By lies, not speaking the truth, they want it so bad they will commit sin to get it from you. Why is this? Verse 6. Thy habitation is in the midst of deceit. Through deceit they refuse to know me, saith Yahweh. So their habitation, meaning their locations, is among the places of deception. What better place for Satan, the devil, to teach this than in a church? He is the father, however, of what? Of lies. Here's the difference between truth and a liar. And it tells you right here in John 8 and 44. It says, ye of your father the devil, in the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. So Yahushua is going against everything that man has made law against the Most High. So even the pastor today says Jesus never, this is what they say, Jesus never challenged civil government. And don't know what they're even talking about. The Pharisees was very much a part of civil government of Rome, as they were in spiritual authority of Judaism. In fact, there was the direct authority of Rome over Judea. By challenging the authority of Pharisees, Jesus was challenging the authority of Rome. The Pharisees, as in everyone else, understood that. So that question of the Roman, remember that question about the Roman, about the penny? Let's look at that before we get into it. Because we got to lay this foundation down, folks. We got to lay this down, sisters and brothers. Once we get this foundation laid in and we lay into it, it's going to be so clear to you to where you understand what they're doing. This is why we have to wake up. Let's go to Matthew 2:22. Let's go to Matthew 22. We're going to pick it up at verse 15. It says, then when the Pharisee took counsel that they might entangle him in his talk. So they're trying to set him up. The Pharisees are the preachers and teachers that want the money of the 501c3. Understand, this is what's going on. And they will use craftiness to trip up the ones who's telling you truth. Verse 16. So they sent them out to their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Master, we know that thou art true and teachest the way of God in truth. Neither carest thou for any man, for thou regardest not a person of men. See, but Herodian is nothing but a switch which is Sadducees. And actually, I'm going to show you that to show you exactly. So when you see this in your Bible, that's who is actually talking about, because it's just talking about Sadducees. But let's prove this. Let's go over here to Mark 8:15 just to prove that, to show you exactly what's going on. So it says, and he charged them saying, take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the leaven of Herod. So this is why he keep referencing Herod, but now we're going to make this perfectly clear in the next scripture, because now we know it's talking about Pharisees and it's talking about Herod, which is the Herodians. But let's follow this. We can follow me and we're going to get this. Let's look at Matthew 16 and verse 6. It says, and Yahushua said unto them, take heed and beware the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. He was saying the same thing. Many times he just uses it in different languages, but he's talking about the same thing. So let's go back to Matthew 22. We're going to pick it up at 17. And we're going to get the understanding exactly what was going on. It says, tell us therefore, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or no? See, this is how they were trying to set him up. So this was the key. Is it lawful? Meaning, is it abiding by government to be obedient to the law, constitute that authorized and established the ruling of government at that given time? It was to Caesar. See, this is what they're challenging. This is the key thing they're challenging. But watch, verse 18. It says, but Yahushua perceived their wickedness and said, why tempt me, ye hypocrites? He calling them complete hypocrites. Yahushua knew the wickedness of the hypocrisy to tempt him to double talk and to lie to save the teachings that he has been doing against their government of not paying money from the churches to Caesar. This is the setup. But watch, verse 19. He said, show me the tribute money, and they brought him a penny. So Yahushua said unto them about the tribute money. They brought him a penny. But watch what went on. And he said unto them, whose is the image and superscription? That's what he want to know. So he's saying he want to know who image is on this inscription. Who is on here? And the inscription on here. Verse 21. And they said unto him, Caesar's. Then he said unto them, render therefore unto Caesar things which are Caesar's, and unto God things which are God's. Yahushua is saying, render mean to give back and surrender it back to his owner. That's what he's saying. Why do you think Caesar faces on that money? As with the money you even have today. So however you look at it, you render back to the Most High, which is things that he owns, and you render to Caesar things which he owns. But watch this. This is really what most people never look over, but they never look at. But then it says in verse 22, when they had heard these words, they marveled, and they left and went their way. But why did they marvel? They marveled because Yahushua ran a precept on them, and we're going to look at that precept. Because he said, render to Caesar things that are Caesar, because why? Because those things has Caesar's image and superscription on it. So we're going to go to Genesis 1:26, and we're going to see right there. And Yahweh said, let us make man in our image, and after our likeness, our superscription, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowls of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. This is all he did. So we are made in the image of the Most High in our superscription, meaning what it represents. This is the legal property of what? The Most High. Just as the money with Caesar with the image is his property. So it was no confusion, just clarification of ownership. That's all what was going on. Many pastors in churches today will compare the lie stating in Romans 13, it says obey the civil government no matter what. However, the men who wrote Romans Paul spent about as much time behind the bars as he did free, as I was saying earlier. Who incarcerated him? The civil government, as today will be the IRS. Why? Because he refused to surrender to the authority policing of the IRS, the Pharisees. And only Christ was Paul and other believers' authority. Convincingly, these heresies began to become popular after churches, and they brought under the authority of the state. In the introduction of the 501c3 tax-exempt status actually was instituted, and it was back in 1954. Try to deny all you want, but when a church submit to the authority of the IRS 501c3 tax-exempt status, it is surrendered to the authority of Christ and replaced it with the authority of the civil government. This is what we're going into. This is not unlike the Pharisees who submitted to the authority of Caesar. It is a manifestation of idolatry and observed in many ways. Pastor today is saying not to obey the civil government. It is not to obey God. See, this is what they're doing. Let's look at Malachi 3 and verse 11. It says, "And the heads thereof judge for reward, and the priests thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet they will lean upon Yahweh and say, Is not Yahweh among us, and none evil can come upon us?" So, again, who hired you? See, this is called right here a wage earner, according to Scripture. How did it come about? How did our pastors in our churches become such slaves of the state? A big reason is the church accepted the 501c3's nonprofit tax status. And since the pastors in the body of the church now believe they must surrender to the lordship of the state, they are content to ignore the great biblical principles that's related to the political lives. Here is what a 501c3 code says under the IRS government website, under the IRS code. And when you look at the 501c3 codes, absolutely prohibits you from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on the behalf or the opposition, any candidate or any elected public official. Contribution to even political campaigns, funds, and public statements and positions, verbal or written, are made on the behalf of the organization in favor of the opposition, and any candidate for a public office clearly violates the 501c3 against the political campaign or the activity that they're doing. Violating the prohibition may result in denial of your tax-exempt status in the imposition in certain exercise taxes. This is why pastors will not speak out against evil practices and policies of bonification of any elected civil magistrate. This is why they won't do it, because they're in fear of violating the 501c3 tax status. That statute that they have there, thereby risk losing their precious government benefit of tax exemption. It is not only the same practice as the Pharisees did, they rejected the authority of Christ for fear of losing the benefits of Caesar's. This is what's going on. So let's go right back to John 11:48 and let's make it perfectly clear. And it says, "If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation." So this is saying, if we, the Pharisees and preachers, let him, Christ, thus alone, all men who believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. Let me put this where the goats can just get down and get it. So if we preach, all it's saying, if we preach Christ alone, the government of Washington, D.C. will come and take away our tax-exempt status and our position and benefits. Now, I believe this should be clear enough. So giving the money to the churches of Satan and enticing for you to give a via tax write-off on your taxes. That's not even biblical giving, because you're giving it for that reason. No one believes that most preachers and ministers honestly will realize that they are giving into the 501c3 corporate in their church ministry. In other words, this is a false truth in many cases. Some honestly don't know, but some do. Many preachers are signing up for the 501c3 tax status because of the financial gains of never paying taxes again on their money. And this is why most of them leave their regular jobs to do these jobs. So now we're going to start digging into this, and we're going to start hitting some, and we're going to look at these tax codes. But let's go to Ezekiel 16:24, because this is what they did. It says, thou hast also built unto thee an eminent place, which thou hast made thee a high place on every street. This is why the image are there. On every street. So on every corner, you have a church. This is an actual image. It's not superficial, and most people know. You can look at the corner of most places you go into, and you see a church on every corner. And this is what he's saying that they're doing. Watch. Verse 25. Thou hast built thy high place on every head of every way, and hast made thy beauty to be abhorred, to be hated. And thou hast opened thy feet to every one that passes by, to multiply thy whoredom. What is it saying? The beauty in the way of the truth, you have now made it hated. Now you're prostituting the word to everyone that's willing to listen in your way. And many pastors are denying the way of truth of the what? The 501c3 stumbling block. The 501c3 defines as the creator. This is what a 501c3 is. We're going to understand what that is. The creator is of the corporation is the state. He is the creator. Write that down, because this is going to be very important. And the state is the sole authority and sovereign head over the corporation. They give the rules and the laws and what will be taught and learned in the corporation. This is why we need to start writing this down, because you can follow this, and then if anyone out there need to go teach this even to a preacher, you can walk him right through it. So the corporation is subjected to the laws of the state, who is the creator, which limits its powers. You may hint on the subject, but you better not make a complete teaching from it, as what I'm doing. They will remove your status. The corporation has no constitutional protected rights. Understand what I'm saying there? None. So be quiet and just what I tell you. And here's the clincher. Most people don't even know I used to create corporations. I can create them overnight. Simplest thing to do. Create it, have my EIN numbers running the same day. Open up the bank accounts the same day. Simple to do. Didn't have to go to run no attorney. Didn't have to go to run to anybody to do it. I know how to do it. Been doing it for years. This is something that's simple to do. So I know how to create the corporations and everything what it's saying here. But not just here. I also know how to set them up in other countries. So why a corporation? A corporation, and I understood the inner fabric of a corporation. And what is that? A corporation is this. Don't never forget this. Brothers and sisters, do not ever forget this. A corporation is an artificial person to any state or country. Say it again. A corporation is an artificial person to a state or country. It's a body without a head. Understand, this is what a corporation is even today. Because who is the head? They are the head. In this case, the corporation submits to the state charter, declaring it as a creature of the state. It was created where? By the state. Why? The 501c3 corporation is created to benefit to who? To the public. And we're going to find out why. It's the false truth tax write-off to lowering your taxes when you want to go and you want the tax write-off. It's a trade-off. This is what they have to do. So the corporation of the state is nothing really but a franchise. This is the charter declaring the creature of the state. The corporation is the privilege granted by the state. This is not a given right once you go under the government franchise. Understand what I'm saying here. Understand where we're coming from. Let's look at Mark 12 and start it and go to 10. It says, and have ye not read this scripture? The stone which the builder rejected is become the head of the corner. So Yahushua is the head of the church. He created this, not the government, not the IRS. So for most people who forget this, let's look at the order. Let's go to 1 Corinthians and pick it up at verse 2. It says, I praise ye, brethren, that ye remember me in all things, and keep the ordinance as I delivered them to you. So he gonna give you the ordinance of this. Verse 3. I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ. Clear. And the head of the woman is the man. Clear. And the head of Christ is God. Clear. These are clear. So the head of every man is Yahushua. The head of every woman is the man. The head of Yahushua is the Most High God. So let's see why Yahushua is the head of the church. Really? Let's see why. Let's go to Colossians 1 and pick it up at 16. It says, for by where all things created. So all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by who? By him. And for who? And for him. These things that were created in the earth, in the heavens, and just in case, he knew how men are, just in case, visible and invisible. Things you can see and the things you can't see. He created them. Verse 17. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. So before the corporations came into play, he was already here. But watch. Verse 18. And what? And he is the head of the body, the church, not the government, who is the beginning and the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have preeminence. What is he saying? What is this saying? A corporation is nothing but a body. That's all it is. It's the same thing. A corporation is nothing but a body, but it needs a head. That's why it's showing you even here. They're using the same analogies. And I just told you not too long ago, here Yahushua is the head of the body. So on the church, he is the head, not the government or the IRS. He will have preeminence. And preeminence, for most people, that don't mean that he's gonna be superiority over them. That's all that's saying. Over all things. However, if you run in a 501c3 church, Yahushua is not the head of that church. The state is. Because the creator of the church, that is the state, they're the head of the body of believers, and the state is the sole authority and sovereign over your church. They will give you instructions and laws, commandments, statutes that you must follow. Your church, that's under the 501c3, your church is subjected to the laws of the state with limits and powers. 1, your church must have no constitutional protected rights. Check it. Your church is an artificial person under the control of the state. We're going to find that out. We're going to prove all things. And the ones who normally listen, they're going to know. We prove things here. We don't sit there and give you some theology, some thought. The church is an artificial person under the control of the state. A church submit to a state charter declaring it is a creature of the state. Your church is created for the benefit of the public. That's what it is. You decide to come into this franchise. So as you making that available, they let you be tax free also. Your church is a state franchise, in that your church grant the privilege by the state. Matthew 24, pick it up at 4. And Yahweh shall answer and said unto them, take heed, let no man deceive you. Why is that? For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. Churches are clearly in the biblical violation with a 501c3 corporation. Once a preacher has signed those papers to a 501c3, no matter what or who he says his creator is, or who he says he's worshiping, they are up in the pulpit and they have signed a document denouncing Yahweh himself as the creator. I don't care how they look at it. They put the state in its place, and no matter what the pastor says and says gives you liberty, and because he has signed in for the 501c3, that gives him no liberty, can be taken out within the church unless it's approved by the state that granted the privileges. This screams violations to the gospel and already defending. But while we barely started looking at the depths of the 501c3, meaning what? A 501c3, being an artificial person, is not considered even an actual person. So under the First Amendment rights in the United States Constitution, under the Religious Liberty Clause, under the Fifth Amendment, under the United States Constitution, protection against self-incrimination clause, therefore a corporation church has no First or Fifth Amendment rights. So if you have time to look at this case, just write this down and just look at this case. Johnson versus Goodyear in 1899. This is when they broke them off. A corporation being an artificial person, and that's what they use, only has the right within the meaning of the due process of equal protection clause of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Was the similar provision in the state constitution and within the meaning of the state statutes, meaning, all this meaning is, in a 501c3, the church had no constitutional rights. None. Then you have these preachers saying, well, if he come after me, or if he come over and talk to me, we're just going to disobey the government. Yeah, okay. The ones who want to say that, you give them this verse to chew on. Let's go over here to Acts 5:29. You give them this, the ones who say that. Then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than man. Give them that scripture right there. Then you agree who you ought to obey God rather than man. However, if you sign that 501c3 contract, saying that this is the way you want to go because you want these kind of benefits, saying that you're going to obey man instead of God. You flipped it around. So if a preacher signs and he end up going with the 501c3 alliance to the government rather than God, then God expect him to do what he said that he would do, but he turned and break that contract and engages in lying, which God says in all it is an abomination to him. This is abomination stuff he hates. Proverbs 16:6 and 16. It says 6 things doeth the Lord hate. Yea, 7 are abomination unto he hate. And what do he hate? See, 6 things that he hate, but we're going to look at it. A proud look and lying tongue. The hands that shed innocent blood. Understand what he's saying. Verse 18. A heart that deceives the wicked imaginations, feet that swift to run into mischief. What is this saying here? This is another problem with people with these shady hearts. Verse 19. A false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discourse among the brethren. So inconsistency between the beliefs, and one holds between one action and the other one's belief, which I also call, please remember this, because this is something I actually like to use a lot of times when I do my school teaching, is conjugative dissonance. Please, in conjugative dissonance, if you want to spell it out, It's spelled COGNITIVE in dissidence. It's two words. DISSONANCE. Conjugative dissidence. Why these two words I like to use so many times in the teaching when I teach in the school? Let me give you the meaning of it. It's when a person has a theological conflict resulting in incourageous belief and attitudes held simultaneously. They having the same belief simultaneously, two completely different beliefs. What this technically saying? They're crazy. That's conjugative dissidence. Technically, you're saying they're crazy. So the two cannot in no way be yoked together. It's impossible. In 2 Corinthians 6:14, be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship that righteousness have unrighteousness, and what communion have light with darkness. So these people are unbelievers in the Most High and believers of money. Fellowshipping with unrighteous people, do light commune with dark? You see what he's saying? They don't. As light goes out, dark come in. As dark goes out, light come in. They don't commune together. Verse 15. Can what concord have Christ with Baal? You see, what are you going to have to do with that? Or what part he that believeth with an infidel? So Yahweh so he's saying, is he going to buddy up with Satan? Or do you believe the truth and then you also believe the infidel too? You see what I'm saying? This is what he's saying here. Are you mixing the two together? Verse 16. In what agreement have the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God, as God has said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. So the Most High made an agreement with idols over his temples? No, because we are his temples of the Most High. And this is where he dwells. So he dwells and walks around inside of you. He walks around, he renovates, he remodels, changes things around inside. So if we need to choose who we're going to serve, either we're going to be serving the Most High or we're going to be serving Satan. It's one of the two. Let's go to Joshua 24:15. And it says, if it seems evil unto you to serve Yahweh, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your father served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, whose land ye dwell. But as for me in my house, understand what he's saying. We will serve Yahweh. That's a bottom line deal that he's saying. You're not serving nobody. If you're going to serve them, you're going to be serving this somewhere else, not in his house. Joshua wasn't one to be played with, because you're not going to serve both. Let's go to Matthew 6:24. And it says, no man can serve two masters, for either he going to hate one and he going to love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and mammon. So if any man really loves money, he will not serve the Most High. Either he will be hot or he's going to be cold for the Most High. It ain't no in between. He's going to either be one way or the other way. He ain't going to be in the middle. He ain't going to be straddling no fence. He's going to be one way or the other. To clear it up, we're going to look at Revelations 15, and we're going to start diving into some of this. It says, and I know thy works, and I know thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. And what it says in verse 16, and so then thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew you out of my mouth. He's making this clear. He don't want no lukewarm. So if he's gonna spit you out of the mouth. So if you went to a church that's a 501c3 corp, then the IRS has every right to tell you, your church, what you can and what you cannot preach. Understand that. So if God was the creator of your church, then God tells the church what you can and cannot preach. But All changes as soon as you sign up with the 501c3. So then you have the fear of the IRS revoking the tax exempt status, which have not been even biblical at any time or sense of the matter. Understand that. Deuteronomy 28:58. If thou wilt not observe and do all the words of the law that are written in this book, thou art may fear this glorious, fearful name, the Lord thy God. So now if you are observing the laws of the Most High, and you don't want to observe it and do as much problem with your health and everything, this is what he does. Verse 59, then the Lord shall make thy plagues wonderful, in the plagues of thy seed, even the great plagues, in the long continence and sores, sickness in long continence. So these great plagues of sores and sickness, in the rolling of the IRS, under the 501c3 regulations, you have no freedom of speech under the First Amendment rights. It's automatically mean that you have no religious liberty, because freedom of speech in the first requirement of religious liberty, most churches under 501c3 has a contract, and it demands that your organization is something that believes in public terms that has predominance by the government. Meaning what? The government grants exemption and allow deduction to all taxpayers who are affected. They're affected by the exemption or deduction, and the donor means that the taxpayer can say and be indirect as a donor. Charitable exemptions is justified by the basis on the exempt status that confers with the public benefit. Benefits is just the society and community that may not itself choose to be able or provide, but it supplants and advances of the work that of the public or the institution that's already supported by the tax revenues. This is a game that is being ran, that these churches engulf themselves in. Matthew 12:25, and Jesus said, their thoughts I said unto them, every kingdom is divided against itself, and brought to desolation, in every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. So these crooked preachers want their cake and eat it too. That's what they're doing. Because what they want to do, it tells you right here in verse 26. If Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? That's why he's saying. So how can somebody who have a 501c3 and then they say, well, we can preach whatever we want? I don't care who they are, Sabbath day teachers or whatever. They have a 501c3. They cannot teach whatever they want. Period. They might hint on it, but they can't stay on it. And I can guarantee you this. One might say they can stay on it. Tell them, let's do this. We're going to record this to make sure that the government understand what is going on, and we want them to change. We're going to record this, and we're going to send this to them from us. Watch what they're going to tell you. No, we ain't going to do that, because that'll get them knocked out. That'll get them removed from their tax exempt status. Satan would not cast out Satan. So if he's under that 501c3, he might hint towards it. It might talk about how crooked some stuff is, and we just going to stand our ground. This is why the same thing with these preachers when the sodomites came out and them homosexuals wanted to start being married in the church. That's why some of them even changed their way. They say, we're not going to marry in the church, or the pastor don't marry nobody no more. They punished everybody for the one thing. But then if you have somebody who's not tied under that 501c3, see, I don't care how many sodomites come in there. I don't care how many homosexuals, and you gonna marry us. And you tell them no. They can go sue all day, and the court's gonna tell them it's nothing. They under their own charters. Period. We can't tell them nothing. Have a Coke and a smile and go somewhere else and be wild. But Satan can't cast out Satan. He's not going to have it. Let's look at 1 Timothy 6 and verse 10. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some convert after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. What is it saying? These are a way of worship, driving from money in the bank accounts for the large sums and carrying the pastors. This is what people do. Or else it requires it of you. And he is an evil, and you need to be the fellowship basically with unfruitful works, because these are what these people are doing. The ones who sitting there supporting these churches and doing that and giving the church, and if a church is a 501c3, you're dealing with the wrong church. I don't care what church it is. Ephesians 5:11, it tells you, and have no fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. And we're going to start proving some of this because we are brothers and sisters of the faith. But let me show you the 501c3 brothers and sisters of the faith, because now we're going to go down into it and we're going to break some of this down. So I'm going to show you a list, because we're going to break these parts down on where if you under the same one, make sure we understand. If you under the same one, the 501c3, I'm going to show you who you clicked up with. These are the ones that you clicked up with, these organizations, because you're under a corporation. We're going to find out the definition of incorporate. We're going to find out these definitions exactly and make sure you clearly understand this. And it's not going to be my understanding. This is going to be dictionary textbook definitions. But let me show you what these organizations is clicked up with. Here goes some of them who they tied to. The First Church of Satan. This is clearly a 501c3 church. We also have Planned Parenthood, the baby killers. We also have the gay and lesbian advocates and defenders. These are 501c3s. These are who you tied to. Touchstone Local Council Covenant of Godness. Understand what's going on. The secular web, anti-God organization. These are the infidels.org. This is who you're tied to. And we're going to find out how you tied to them. U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Q Cinema, Gay and Lesbian Internation Film Festival. These are people you're tied to. The Witch's Voice. Church of Scientology. Understand? And you're going to find out this is who you're yoked with. So if you 501c3, I'm going to show you how you embed with them. Satanist cult of Cthulhu. Understand who these people are. American Atheists. 501c3. Mormon Church of Latter-day Saints. And Pagan Droids of Cedar Lake Grove. Islamic Society of Corona Norco. It's a youth camp. So they would say they're not like them. See, this is what they're going to tell you. Well, we're not like them. Write these down. Well, we're not like them. And it says this, they're teaching the truth in its entirety. And are they changing the word of God? Are you equally yoked with unbelievers? Let's go to 2 Corinthians 6:14. Let's look at that again. Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For the fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion have light with darkness. So you are the same organization as a 501c3 corporate is with the devil. They may say no, but they are not yoked, but they are. So we're going to look up, as I said, we're going to look this up. So besides precept in this, we're going to look up the definition of what we're talking about in corporate. So we're going to look at the definition of corporate to show you they are clicked up together. Let's go to it. See what it means. So, incorporate. Merriam-Webster, 1828. To unite together into something already existed as to a form an indigestible whole. To blend and to combine thoroughly. Understand what that's saying? A form into a legal entity and admit membership in a corporate body. Understand, you all join is one body. But who is the head? The state. You understand that? You see how it's not, you don't see head nowhere in there. I even go down to right down here. To unite in or as one body. To become a corporation. Understand what that means. So even if you hit that in body, it tell you to give one body in the spirit and everything. It's telling you all right there. But look right here. The cause to become a body or part of a body. You see right there? Incorporate. This is letting you know they becoming one of the same. That's why they set up a 501c3 corporation. They become part of the body, so they part of the body with all those links I just showed you. So we got to understand that. Let's go to Acts 5:1 and get this understanding, and we're going to see what went on, even when you look at what happened with Peter now. It says, but a certain man named Ananias and Sapphira, his wife, sold a possession. Understand, they sold a possession. So they sold some property and they received some money. Verse 2, and kept back part of the price, and his wife also being privy to it, and brought a certain part and laid it at the apostles' feet. This is what they did. They laid this at the apostles' feet. But they kept back some of it. But they laid a little bit of it at the apostles' feet. Verse 3. But Peter said, Ananias, why have Satan filled thy heart and lie unto the Holy Ghost? So, mind you, Peter's telling him, but the Holy Ghost is speaking. It's going to give him utterance. And he said, and he had kept back part of the price of the land. See, because he was going to sell it, but why he just didn't tell what he was going to do? See, because he sounded like he gave all what he had. But watch. While it remained, it was not thy own. And after it was sold, was not it thy own power? Why have thou conceived this thing in thy heart, and thou hast not lied unto men, but unto God? All he had to do is, I'm going to tell you what, I sold this possession, but I'm giving this amount. Or you going to give it all? Or I'm going to give all this amount and you give it. But don't hold back. He's being unequally yoked. He want to keep a little bit part of it. He ain't giving it all. So he's trying to yoke himself to God and mammon. He's lukewarm. Verse 5. And Ananias hearing these words and fell down and gave up the ghost. And great fear came upon them that heard these things. So, as I said, this was the problem. And he died from it. He was lukewarm. Verse 6. And the young man arose, wound him up, and carried him out and buried him. And it was about a space of 3 hours after, when his wife, not knowing what was done, he already buried. Then she didn't hit the funeral. He already buried. She came in. And Peter answered unto her, and tell me whether ye sold the land for so much. And she said, yea, for so much. So she told the same lie how much she sold the land for, and it wasn't for that real price, because she going to keep some of that money back. She lying. Why? She's lukewarm. This is why he said that. So she already know the husband already told the price, and she just holding to it. Why she here you go. And Peter said unto her, how is it that ye have agreed together to tempt the spirit of Yahweh? Therefore, the feet of them which buried thy husband, now letting you know he was dead, are at the door, and should carry thee out. So now he's going to carry you out too. Then she fell down straightway at his feet and yielded up the ghost. And the young men came in and found her dead, and carried her forth and buried her by her husband. Verse 11, and a great fear came upon the church and upon many as heard these things. Why? They was trying to yoke themselves with the money in God. And all they had to say was, this is what they sold it for, and this is all they were going to give. A church of the Most High is not to be yoked together with the ones of the 501c3. Period. But now being yoked up with baby killers, atheists, homosexuals, God-mocking devils, worshiping organization. And I say this, if you attend a church that is 501c3 incorporated, I don't care how good they are. I really just like that because of this there. I'm telling you right now, it may seem good, but you need to get out that church. Because no matter what, this is what you yoked up with. You cannot get me to believe that the Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, sent his son Yahushua, our Lord and Savior, to die on a tree to give salvation to Israel, then send the Holy Spirit as protection and guidance for those body of believers on him to turn around and bless the churches who denounce Christ by getting in bed with the heathens, the Wiccans, the satanic people, the sinful organization. And you cannot even get me to believe this stuff because it's a lie. So before you become a member of a 501c3 family, you must agree, number one, that all religions are the same. That's in the contract. We're going to see one too. But this is what we have to understand. It is now a fact that in order to keep your taxes in status, a church must agree that all religions are equal. The new applications for recognition of exemption, Form 1023, Schedule A, we're going to see that. A church, Reverend, in September 1908, demands in declaration to this effect the following words at point 3. We're going to see that, but the point is going to read, and it does not take much intelligence to figure out that they was going with this in order to be considered a legal church, tax exempt in America. The church or religious organizations will have you declare that all religions are equal. Period. You want to get a copy? We're gonna see where you can get a copy in just one second. Then we got, does the organization require prospective members to renounce their religious belief or their membership to other churches or religious orders to become a member? Then this is some of their questions. Yes or no? If yes, describe. If it doesn't take much intelligence, as I said, to figure this out. It don't take. But we're going to look at this where in order for your church to get that tax exempt status, application and recognition in that Schedule A, as I said, we're going to check this out. Let's look at this. Now you have the IRS. We're actually on their site. We're on the IRS site. And as I said, see right here? Now I got to see if mine go there. But if not, this website is https://www.irs.gov//pub/IRS-PDF. And the one that you want to click on is this one right here. And if you have a PDF viewer in here, which I can see mine, well, mine is coming. I don't know if it's going to come all the way through. And I see it's not coming all the way through. So I'm at the, but you can go down and you can actually see this. So I'm going to end up going to another place. But you can go right down to that place and you'll see it. So the average American, they read and they don't understand any part of it, but you'll see where they're going to get down into the A and they're going to show you exactly how you're yoked up with them. This is why you need to really understand that. So the legal wording, again, that you're also going to see in there, you're going to see military installation. Understand what? Military installations, which many would typically take to mean these only that apply to military bases. This is not the case. This is legal information that Institute shows us the definition of the U.S. Code 2801. Understand when you understand corporations, when you understand when doing business in the business world. The term military installation means what? Means the base camp, post, station, yard, center, or other activities under jurisdiction of the Secretary of Military Department, or in this case of the activity of a foreign country under the operational control of the Secretary of the Military Defense, the Secretary of Defense, without regard of duration of operational control. What is all this saying? This is happening to be invoked, which is military installation. It is an existing property in the U.S. that is under the jurisdiction of the military, and it will continue. And it also reads in H.R. 65, you will find the interesting note under there, and you'll see it under proposed B. So once you see H.R. 65, you will find the interesting note there. It says for propose a national emergency centers. The proposed national emergency center, it will be used for existing infrastructure. Understand what's getting ready to go down there. Okay. And what do that have to do with a 501c3 church? Let's see what that has to do with a 501c3 church. So keep the following in mind, that the following factors that's listed and considered under the military jurisdiction in regard to the national emergency provided 3 that provide central locations to improve the coordination of preparedness in response and recovery efforts of government, private, and not-for-profit entities in faith-based organizations. Bingo. That's what's there. What do that mean? Your church is legally sanctioned as a U.S. military infrastructure, whether you like it or not. And if you look carefully at the code 2801, quoted above, it's without regard of duration or operational control. So what does that really kind of mean? If something goes down and they need to use yours, and all they have to do is sanction it. That's all they have to do is invoke it. You ain't having church there. That becomes their property until they see fit to move on. That's the trade-off. So meaning that under 501c3 church, prepare and be ready to serve the U.S. military at any time. And this is right now. They are prepared or not, they have to serve the U.S. military at any time. So the same as these bad things that happen, these hurricanes that happen in these other states, that is out in Texas and all these places, if the military came in and they wanted to invoke this, they can take over any church that's a 501c3. And there's nothing they can say nor do. Period. Nothing. The U.S. military at any time have no limit or duration, and they use their own discretion. And someone does not fully follow. If you are a 501c3 entity, the U.S. government and military owns you, and the proposal deems important. So you can go on about this monster. I'm talking about I can go through this monster continuously to show you the veracity in the hatred that this thing will do to a church, and show you that these churches is not clicked up together. These churches is not part of God's house. When they choose, and you have a preacher that chooses to take you to a 501c3, he's telling you he's removing away from the Most High, and he's going the direction of the church, because the church, the head is the state. The state become the head of the church. Not Yahweh, not Christ. The head becomes the state. Now, even what I showed here on this small teaching here, I'm pretty light. I can go so much deeper on this because this is something I create companies like it was nothing. These is a very dangerous thing when people do these 501c3s. Never done them. No, I don't get it. I don't put nothing of mine in the 501c3. Period. You become a property of the state. So when you have a preacher telling you that they can sit there and lie to you and say, we can preach on anything we want all day long, I will record it and tell them we'll turn it in to let the state know how devils they are. And I guarantee they won't do it. Why they won't do it? Because they know they'll lose a 501c3 status. Period. That same thing, if people can come in there, be part of that body of that church, and they can be sodomites, and then they decide they want to get married, and you tell them, no, I'm not going to marry you, and you done marry some heterosexual ones, and you're a 501c3, you're getting ready to get sued, and you will lose. You will not win that battle. Because under the state, you can't go against the laws of the state. And if the state has a law to where they can be married, you have to marry them because you under the 501c3, you're the body, they're the head. You see the difference? Not under the 501c3. I don't care how many sodomites come in there and say you're going to marry us. Tell them, go, hey, have a Coke and a smile and go be wild somewhere else. But I'm not marrying you. At all. They can't sue you because you're not tied to the state. A church is not even an entity. That's the point. The church is the body of believers. So why are you turning yourself and putting it to a building and then you making yourself become part of the state? This is the catch that they do. So when you sit there and you got these people believing that we're going to tell you what, we're going to become part of this, we're going to write off all this money, but then they also taking money in for themselves. This is the deepness of this. I'm talking, we can go so deep into this and show you line upon line. I can actually do another one where I can actually just get screen captures of the contracts and show you line upon line on how they get them. But you can go down to that government website, look at that PDF document, that contract that they signed. Go right down there to that Schedule A, the ones who wrote that out, and look at it. And it's going to have one part, it's going to say particularly to a church. It's going to say the church. And you're going to see the laws they had to follow. And it's on the government website. Can't no pastor, no preacher, no teacher, no one else can sit there and tell you they don't have to abide by that, because they do. They're not the head. They're the body. The state is the head. And when they're the head, they tell you how you're going to go down. When Christ is the head, he tell you what's going to go down. This is why they'll sit there and sugarcoat many things. This is why they tell you, oh yeah, we're going to do this way, and we're going to do this that way. Oh yeah, well, we don't teach on this. Well, we teaching about love. They can't stay on the subject very long. Because if they do, they're going to lose their 501c3 status. That 501c3 status is very important to them. But that 501c3 status is the service to the public. It's really not necessarily service to the entity itself. But the person who's actually being over it is the Pharisee is sitting there. He just getting the benefit. He quit his job. He's making pretty good money. He quits his job. And then what? You guys are paying him a salary, but it's a tax write-off. It's nonprofit. So he's living tax-free. This is the catch. But who you clicked up with? You yoked up with everybody else. Incorporate means you joining up with a bunch of other believers who have the 501c3 belief. Satanic and everybody else have that same belief. In all religions under the state is created equal. This is all they're saying. So you can't say their religion is different than yours, because it asks you specific questions and it's going to run you through a whole different charter. And you're going to have to follow theirs, not yours. So with that, I wish that you guys had a pretty good understanding on what's going on. But if this come up anymore, we will go into more detail, because it is so much on this deeply. But this is enough to where you can take this to any preacher, and show him If he's tied to a 501c3 and you sitting in their church, and they're accepting 501c3 and they saying, well, we're doing this to help the people. He said, you render to Caesar things that are Caesar. You render to God things that are God. That's why he used the penny. Understand what's going on there. But they want to sit there. The first lie they like to say, how you going to keep on the lights? How you going to do it? These are the lies they like to use. Malachi 3:6, for I am the Lord, I change not. So if he ain't changed back then, he ain't changing now. But people rush to run down there to give their money to the church. And if the church was doing one thing, then some people like to, well, look at Cornelius. Cornelius gave much arms to who? He didn't give them to the church, to a building. It said he gave arms to the people. Understand what's going on. Then you had churches building up their bank accounts, having all this money, doing all these things. This is the devil working, and they sitting there playing all these games. Then you have some of these Israelite camps to where everybody pay in, and money goes back to one place. And then they have all these little satellite places, but everybody paying to one place, but then they have to send it to somewhere else. And they're under 501c3. Foolish. This is total foolishness on ways that they get people. If you're going to sit there and you're going to maintain it, all they have to do is sit. We're going to tell you what, our building costs for us to worship here. The monthly bill here is $1,000. Don't take it up during service time. They can send that during the week. When it's Sabbath time, ain't no money being given up. Period. You do that before you get there. And you give arms, but then once you reach that monthly due, then you let them know, okay, hey, we're good. We're good for this month. But they're not going to do that. Because they have ulterior motives. And then some of them will sit there and tell you that lie where you want to sow a seed. Sow a seed of what? The seed is the word of God. If you want to sow a seed, you go buy them a Bible. Don't fall and let man deceive you. So with that, I wish that you guys got some edification from this. And hopefully, if they do, I have so much more to go deeper into this on, but this is clearly enough to where we can go through here and you can understand the inner workings on how 501c3 and when you yoking up together, how they actually work. Basically, they're yoking up with everybody else and they become the body and the state becomes the head and the state controls it. That's why they have to teach what they teach and they can't touch on certain things. And this is why they have to keep their mouth shut. And then they speak against people such as myself and other brothers that teach truth. This is why they do that. So with that, I bid each and every person a shalom.